And welcome back to My Conscious Dad. I'm your host, Alex Urbina, right here in your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm in studio with my good friend, Riel Andrews, and we're talking about being a conscious father and what does that mean. You know, the first segment, we were talking a little bit about, our experiences about what we need to work on and some of the things that we're noticing. And, one of the things that, I started off the show with specifically the biggest aha moment as the brand new awareness of deciding to become a conscious or choosing to be a conscious dad is that my kids might need something specific from me. And earlier you were talking about that you have 3 kids and that you said that there's no magical formula, like one formula for all 3 kids. You have to kind of find the different formulas for each one of them. And as you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, there might not necessarily be one magical formula for them because you have 3 kids, but there might be one magical formula for you that fits all 3 kids. And I think that that's the journey that I'm looking for, is how do I discover that one magical formula that I can develop within myself that works all across the board, or at least 90% of people, or at least that one magical formula works with majority of my kids or majority of my family members or majority of the people that I work with. I'm always figuring out how to fine-tune what's next for me. What's the thing that I need to work on? What's my next fear or insecurity or my next doubt, or what are the things that I got to tweak within myself to be more effective? And that's really what it's about. It's about you deciding that you want to be more effective in your life, more effective in relationships, more effective in creating certain results that you're looking for. It's not about deciding that certain things in your life are good and bad. I like to get people to move away from deciding this is good, this is bad. Let's look and let's use that word called being more effective. That's why I like using that word, because more effective people, that gets people excited. Like, I'm good at something, but I want to be more effective at it.
So what is that? What, as I'm hearing you say that, do you got it? Because I want that. So what does it look like? Are
the
you
formula?
Still yeah, the formula.
I'm still searching for it.
But
because I'm on that journey and committed to finding that and discovering that, I'm a little bit further down the road than most people. That doesn't mean I'm better than. It just means that I've been working a little bit more diligently and rigorously and consciously on it. So I'm going to create those kinds of results. The same way if I started working out, which I have the last 6 months with you, and I'm like, how do I get those abs that you have? How do I get those? And you're kind of like, you're going to chuckle inside and you're going to say, you're on the road, just keep working at it. But depending on how rigorous of a commitment do I have? Am I in the gym twice a week? Am I in the gym haphazardly? Or do I have this rigorous commitment, and am I hungry, and am I doing all the extra things? It could make up the difference for it.
Well, and, when you talk about commitment as a trainer, what it makes me think about, you get me fired because it's so true, whether we're looking to be a conscious dad or whether it's, goals in the gym. The problem, people are where they are is because they're not committed. It makes me think of, Andrew, because he's a sports guy. It's like one of the things I think of, people, they try to compare LeBron James and Michael Jordan. You can't even say that in the same sentence because it's 2 different people. LeBron James is an athlete, he wake up, but Michael Jordan was committed. He was 110% every single day. LeBron has good days and bad days, but that ain't committed.
So since we're talking about the sports, especially basketball, you saw Kobe Bryant's last game.
Come on, man. That ain't right.
So check it out. So at the end of the game, they interview him. He does his interview. And the thing that inspired me the most, and I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. They asked him, what are you going to do tomorrow? And he said, I'm going to get up and go to my new job. And the guy just lit himself on fire, scored
60 points.
60 points on his last retirement game. Gave people glimpses of him being, when he was 18 years old again. And he wasn't even really probably experiencing his experience, because they were asking him, how do you feel? And he was honestly saying, I don't know how I feel. I'm kind of, it's happening so fast. But he flat out said, I'm going to work tomorrow on my new job. It wasn't, I'm going to get up and I'm going to take a couple of weeks off. He flat out said in that interview, I've been interviewing all the other athletes that have retired. And he goes, and what I'm noticing is that when they all say that I'm going to take a week off or a month off, that they never jump back on. And so he's smart enough and conscious and aware enough to say, I'm not going to fall into that trap. That's commitment.
Yep.
I got up that next morning and I actually Facebooked that quote because it just really inspired me, because I'm sitting there getting ready to go to work and I'm thinking about him getting up, going to work after what he just did the night before.
Yeah, and that's the difference between, and it's like when we get talking about
when he has all
everything.
The evidence to say, I'm just going to kick it today. I'm just going to relax with my family.
But he's going to work.
Committed.
He's committed, and what we got when we take and bringing it from him back to what I'm learning as a parent. You know, we need to be committed to being a conscious parent to our kid. They didn't ask to be brought in this world. You know, we brought them in, so you can't just be casual about it.
So let's talk about some things. I'm going to throw some specific things about what I've been noticing, about things that I've needed to work on since I decided to embark on this journey of consciousness, more specifically as a father. Some of the things that I notice is that my kids need, remember I said earlier that kids need some specific things from me? My kids need to be validated. They need to know that they exist, that they're important. They need to be seen. I need to let them see me see them. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not.
I see.
It's kind of like a double talk.
No.
They need, when I look at, when they do something, when they're washing their car and I'm walking out and I look over, I need to make sure that they look over and we make eye contact and they smile. Or I say, hey, you know, and I might make a joke, hey, my car's next, or hey, you need help, or something. But they need to be seen. They need to know that you are watching them in their life, right? So validated, they need to be seen. They also need to be acknowledged. Acknowledged authentically when there's something to be acknowledged for. How many times in your life are you so focused on whatever your next business idea is, or the next worry, or you know, the next bill that you can't pay, or whatever it is, when that golden moment comes by and your son or daughter did something that you weren't even present to see, that was something that you appreciate or that you recognize was some of their greatness, and that you miss an opportunity to acknowledge them. Our kids need more acknowledgement, especially from us. Our kids need to be taught. I think for some reason, as an unconscious dad, there was a certain point there where I just assumed that my job is to teach them to a certain point, and then after that, they're on their own. Rather than, I'm going to be teaching my kids even in their 50s. Even when they're 60 years old and I'm walking around with a cane, I'm going to be going, hey, sonny boy, come over here, come sit down, let's have a chat. I'm going to constantly be rigorously giving myself permission to create an opportunity for me to teach my kids, which means that I have to be a great example. It means I got to model that which I'm looking from them to have them go down that path. I got to be modeling that to some point and be doing it well. The other thing that they need specifically from me is that I got to be patient. And that's something that I have to master within myself, is especially being a controlling style personality. I really have to learn how to be more patient. And I know you've heard me say this before, because I just said it recently to you. And I said to you and Michelle not too long ago, I said, imagine your 30 years from now, you're that old gray-haired grandpa where you got your grandson on your knee, and he's looking over at you and he's going, yeah, daddy's so frustrated, he's yelling at me. And you're looking at your grandson, you're going, yes, you know, son, you know, don't worry about it. Like, you know, I'll hang out with you and we'll chat. And there's this patient old man that you can foresee yourself 30 years from now being that patient, loving man with your grandson. You need to be that guy now. Mm-hmm. So practice being that. Use that vision as who you get to choose to become every single day, and work at being that patient old man. Those are what our kids need. But you probably won't develop it until you're already a grandfather. But I think that's the wisdom I think that we need as fathers, is to be that patient man that you can become. Start practicing how to be that now. The other thing that our kids need, I think, more specifically from us as conscious dads, is that we have to learn how to be empowering. We have to learn how to inspire our kids. In fact, one of the books that I'm writing right now is my first book, and it's called Empowering and Inspiring Your Teenager. And there are some specific things that I give as a magical formula to be able to shift into from a controlling style parent and learning how to shift into empowering and inspiring our kids. Another thing I think we need to really focus on is believing in them. At some point down the line, I think we stop believing in their greatness because we have so much evidence that they don't know how to follow instructions. They don't keep their word. They're not always honest. They don't follow, instructions well. So we have all this evidence that we're holding on to that clouds us and gets in the way of us actually believing that they are capable of being that powerful human being that we visualize. The other thing is that something specific they need from us is that we need to hold them accountable. They really need us to hold them accountable and say, look, you told me X, and if X isn't here, there has to be a consequence. We already talked about that. And it's your job to hold that line. How many parents do you know that don't hold that line? They don't walk the line. We love our kids so much. It's like, all right, we might ground them for 7 days, and we don't hold the 7 days. By the second day, they've learned how to play us and come on, Dad, and hey, and then it's like, all right, go ahead. And what are we teaching them when we do that?
That we're teaching them that they can get their way by just manipulating, or he's not true to his word. He's a pushover. He always says things but never follows through. One
of the greatest realizations I had with my son is that I realized that he's a charming kid. And I realize that I can't buy into his charm. When I lay something down and there's a consequence, I have to keep that no matter how charming you are. And he might be able to be charming with all the people around him, like his aunt or his mom or his teachers and all the people that love him, and he can pull the charm on them, but he ain't pulling it on me, because it's my job to not buy into the charmingness and be that soft person. My job is to teach you. And so I have to hold that line so that somebody in your life holds you accountable. Because when you leave my home and go into the real world, guess what? The real world is going to demand that you start to be responsible and be accountable for your own choices. And if not, guess where you're going? You're going to jail. That's the consequence. And so it would kill me to know that my son is in jail, or any of my kids are in jail, and I got to go to that glass and hold up that phone, and I'm staring at them in the eye, and I got to do some self-reflection on the drive home and ask myself, where did I not stand that line and hold him accountable, that the switch didn't get flipped in his head, that he has to be able to be accountable for his choices. That thought alone, that kills me. Mm-hmm. That forces me to stand that line so that he learns that lesson, and that all my kids learn that lesson. The other thing is that kids need you to be fun and playful too. It's not good enough to just be that rigorous guy. You got to bring out that little inner child in you and have fun with them. That's where they connect with you. If you're this rigorous, hardcore dude all the time, they're not going to warm up to you. You need to hook them with your heart. You gotta be playful, and it's got to be a little bit of a dance. You can't be just rigorous all the time, right?
Yeah, and I had something happen just yesterday. It's funny, as you're going through this list, I can check off everything and have examples in my head. But specifically, just yesterday, I was driving Marcus home, and he was sharing with me a little bit, and you could see he kind of like he said, yeah, there was a man. He kind of sort of said it like there was a big food fight at school today. And at first I went, oh, and then I caught myself and I go, food fight? Oh, that's cool. And I was, then he came back and he got excited with me, and he opened up more and more. And then later on that night, last night, he comes running and goes, Dad, check it out. I just got a text. There's going to be another big one tomorrow. So now, because I wasn't the food fight, are you sure you should be doing that? You shouldn't be throwing food. That's waste of food. But what it is, maybe it is or it isn't. But I said, let me be a little kid with him. And because I did that, I believe that he opened up to me even more later that night.
That's right. And you have to trust that you've instilled enough values and enough morals in him that he's not going to engage in it, rather than letting your fear come up and then having that fear now start to preach to him again. Because you know what happens when you preach to your kids, right?
No.
They tune out on you.
Okay.
When you start preaching, and every time you think you're making a difference and you're giving him the wise words, they tune you out. They get parent deaf.
Ah.
But if you start asking them questions like, so you know, what happened? What did you do when this food started flinging? You know, if you start asking him open-ended questions and get him to have a conversation with you, you might start to learn some things about him that you probably didn't know. Like, well, yeah, they started doing it, and I'm not going to engage in that. He, out of his own mouth, he might be validating that what you taught him, you're right on track. But instead of trusting that and engaging in a conversation with him by asking him questions, you're just gonna default right to starting to preach and remind him that what he shouldn't be doing.
So what I'm hearing you say, correct me if I'm wrong. Let's use a scenario, okay? So I think a scenario that most parents could be in. So maybe you want your kids to go to a certain school because you believe it's a better for them, a better situation, opens more doors, rather than sitting down and going like, Alex, it'd be amazing for you. You're going to get this, you're going to get that. You got to be smart enough and conscious enough to go. So Alex, you know, what do you think would happen if you were to go to that school? You got to ask questions rather than talk to them and tell them everything why they should go to that school. Is that kind of?
Instead of telling, you should ask. But
so you really got to work.
But it takes some work. That's the part that most parents, you know, they want to take the easy route, which is I'm just going to muscle you and I'm just going to convince you and I'm just going to tell you my perspective of why I think you should go there. Some parents don't even tell you that. They're just saying, I'm just moving you there. You're just going. That's it. But I think conscious parents realize that they want their kid to flip their own switch and say, you know what, Mama, I think I do want to go there. And the only way that you can get there is by asking them open-ended questions about what they're interested in, and then ask them about the school, and then ask them, you know, do they think that what the school offers is what they were needed? And you got to engage them into a dialogue so that at the end of the half-hour conversation or 45-minute, you know, talk, that they go, you know what, Mom, it sounds interesting. Let me think about it some more. And then you have to be patient enough to have the next conversation a day later or a couple of days later. But most of us, we want to make that decision.
We don't think they're smart enough to know.
Yes. So we just decide that we're going to make that decision for them. Sort of like the government, right?
Yeah.
The government doesn't think we can handle it. It's not going to reveal certain things. So
don't start with the government. That's a whole nother show.
But what if we had some what if we believed in our kids that they are capable of coming up with their own solutions? What if we believe that if we ask them the right questions and they go to their heart and access their spirit, that they can find the solution and they can find the right answer? And it's your job to help them discover that. You have to learn how to be a facilitator as a parent, not the know-it-all, not the guru. You got to learn how to shift into drawing out their greatness rather than trying to put it into them.
And that for me has been the biggest and the hardest pill, and I'm sure it is for most parents to swallow, but I know that I just have total trust in you and I just jump in. That's how I roll. But, you know, we all come from that mentality. You need to respect me. This is my house. Who do you think you are to talk to me like that? When I was a kid, you know, your dad, you know, and that just doesn't work.
It worked in the 70s.
Yeah.
It worked in maybe some of the 80s. In the 2000s, that doesn't work for them no more. The world has shifted. It's evolved. It's changed. That means you got to change, and you have to evolve your parenting style. You have to evolve yourself. You got to keep doing some more growth and reinvent yourself. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad with Alex Urbina right here in your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. And welcome back to My Conscious Dad with Alex Urbina right here in your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS, hanging out with my boy, Riel Andrews, in the studio talking about being conscious dad. If you miss any of the show, you can always podcast it on our website on KHTS on myhometownstation.com. And hey, man, it's a pleasure hanging out with you. I miss being on the radio with you.
I know. It's always fun.
Doesn't it feel good?
Yeah, it feels always good.
Yeah, because we get in the zone and we talk about, you know, like your show, being real, just getting real and just, you know, opening up and sharing some of the things that, you know, I think everybody has a story, right? And if we just share our story, it could make a difference with somebody else. And, you know, the people that are listening should be listening, because how do we know that?
Because they are listening.
They're listening.
Yeah.
And the ones that aren't listening.
Because they're not listening.
Yeah. And now with podcasts, one show could show up 10 years from now and just be the perfect show that somebody needs to hear, to have that wake up call and realize, you know what, I think there are some specific things that my kids do need, and most likely I haven't really been paying attention to that. And so maybe the show is really just showing me that I'm ready for a new commitment. I'm ready for a new level of conscious parenting, and I want that. Maybe people are yearning to be more effective at parenting. Some people don't realize it. Some realize it through things that just pop up out of the blue. But for me, I was invited to a transformational training at the age of 23. I had my son already at that point, and when I got into that training room and looked at myself deeply and honestly for the first time, I cried, and I realized that there were a lot of dysfunctions in my life and in my perspective that were getting in the way of me being, a better dad and a better husband, better son and brother and contributor to the world. And so I just rigorously got excited to want to continue to work on myself. And it all led me to you, which I'm grateful for. It's been maybe 6 months, 7 months now that you and I ran into each other, and not by accident, but by purpose. And we're supporting each other in our growth, and I'm really grateful for that kind of relationship. It means a lot to me, and I wanted you to know that.
Thank you, and it's the same for me. On both ends, it's like, I think as a father, as a dad, we want to be the best that we can for our family, and I can tell if there's anybody listening, thank God, can I say God on here? Thank God for you being in my life. But what's on my heart right now is there's parents out there that I'm sure that are saying that all sounds good, and man, I want that, but it's too far gone. And my encouragement to you is never give up. I mean, it's never too late. I mean, if you know my life, if you know my story, if you know what my four walls looked like 7 months ago, I'm nowhere near finished, but I've come a long way. And if you can turn me around, you could turn anybody around.
And what's funny is that your turnaround is so inspiring that it's there are people that I know that have been doing this type of work for 10, 15 years, and the way that you lit yourself on fire and have continued to fan that flame, you're causing an inferno. And I think that you're causing such a conscious awareness in yourself that you have superseded people that I know have been in this business and been doing this work for a long time. And that's, hopefully you can see that as an acknowledgement to you of the work and commitment you've been doing. I think that, you're rare and unique, and you get it about being rigorous. When you see value, you lock on it and you bite in like a tag dog, and that's what you have to have. You have to decide.
You have to have the grind.
You have to decide. You do have to have the grind, but you have to decide that your kids are worth it. You have to go back to the day your kids were born and remember what it was like when you had them in your arms and you were feeding them that bottle and staring them in their eyes. Moms, this the best. You were staring at your son or your daughter in their eyes, and you were lost. You were mesmerized. And as you were feeding them and they were looking at you and you were looking at them, I'm pretty sure there was a moment where you said to yourself, kid, I'm gonna have you win no matter what. I'm gonna do everything I can to have you win. All the way to the point where I'm gonna feed you the best foods. I'm going to give you that distilled clean water. I'm going to give you the best, and I'm going to be the best. I'm going to reinvent myself. What happened to that commitment? And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm not saying that to call anyone out. I'm saying it out loud in general, so that if you hear that and that message is speaking to you, maybe that's what you needed to hear today. Maybe that's why you turned the radio on or you found this podcast, is to hear that message, to remind you that you made a commitment. What happened to it? What'd you do with it? Did you drop it? Did you forget about it? Did you get distracted by other things? Did other things become more important than your kids winning? And you realizing that you have to reinvent yourself to actually have today's kids win. Because yesterday's kids, it was a lot easier. You could just say, don't worry about it. Just do it because I said so. That doesn't work with 2016 kids.
No.
And the millennials, it ain't working. They need to know why. And you better know how to explain why and articulate it in a way that really lands with them. And when they get it, guess what? They flip the switch. And when you're able to express yourself and explain that to them and take the time and have the patience to do that, then they light a fire inside of them, and then they're off and running. If you revert back to the old school style, the stuff that your parents did with you, it's not going to be very effective. And I'm sure you've ran across some of that stuff too.
No, I mean, totally. To me, what I'm hearing, what's important, committed. It makes me think of, check this out. Those of us who've had more than one baby, right? You've all heard this, right? Let's just think of the binky, right? That little thing they say. The first binky, if they drop it, they gotta sanitize it, boil it, whatever. By the second baby, they whatever. They're not committed. They're not as.
It's the 5-second rule.
Yeah,
Pick it back up.
Yeah, and then it's the 10 and 20. They're not as committed. You're right. They got to get that passion back. They got to get that drive. They have this dream that they want their kids to be successful, but their passion, their grind, as I call it, isn't big enough, and their grind needs to be bigger than their dream.
Thank you so much. On that note, we're here every Friday, 1 to 2 p.m. Thanks for joining us on My Conscious Dad with Alex Urbina. Stay tuned for more of the Gazette Radio Hour with Doug and John right here in your hometown station, AM 1220, KHTS.